Content warning before we begin. This is a dramatic retelling of Australia's most horrific serial killing case, the Snowtown Murders, also known as the bodies in the barrels. It contains murder, torture, extreme violence, and psychological abuse. Viewer and listener discretion is strongly advised. If you enjoy deep, long-form, true crime retellings, please hit like and subscribe now, and leave a comment telling me which case I should cover next. I read every single one. Some names and minor details have been changed, but everything is rooted in documented court records, police evidence, and survivor testimony. Take a deep breath. We're heading into the vault. Snowtown, South Australia, 1992. Population 500 on a good day, shrinking fast. The main street had one pub, one general store, one bank that hadn't opened since the 80s, and more empty houses than full ones. The railway line still ran through, but the trains didn't stop anymore. John Bunting arrived first. He was 36, thick-set, with a boxer's nose, broken one too many times, and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He told people he'd come for a fresh start after a bad divorce in Queensland. He rented a weatherboard house on the edge of town for $50 a week, cash, no questions. Within a month, he had a job at the abattoir in nearby Port Wakefield, cutting sheep throats 8 hours a day. He said the work calmed him. Robert Wagner moved in next door 6 weeks later. 21, tall, quiet, with a soft voice and hands that never stopped moving. He'd grown up in state care, bounced between foster homes, learned early that the world didn't want him. John offered him a room, a job at the abattoir, and something that felt like family. Robert took it all. They met James Vlasakis at the pub one Friday night. James was 19, skinny, acne-scarred, living with his mom in a caravan park 20 minutes away. He drank too much VB and talked too loud about hating rock spiders, his word for anyone he thought was a threat to kids. John bought him a beer and listened. By closing time, James had a new best mate. Mark Hayden completed the circle. 34, married, 2 kids, worked as a panel beater. He lived in a neat brick house in Salisbury North, an hour south of Snowtown. He met John through a mutual friend who sold stolen car parts. Mark liked John's stories. John liked Mark's garage. At first, it was just talk, late nights in the pub beer garden, voices low, cigarettes glowing. They made lists, names of people they didn't like, people who'd hurt kids, people who'd hurt them. The lists grew. Then the talk turned to action. The first name they crossed off belonged to a man named Clinton Trezise. 22, quiet, kept to himself, lived alone in a flat in Adelaide. Rumor said he'd done things years ago, things with kids. No one could prove it, but rumor was enough. One night in August 1992, John and Robert drove to Adelaide in Mark's panel van. They knocked on Clinton's door with a bottle of bourbon and a smile. He let them in. He was never seen alive again. They buried him in a shallow grave behind John's house in Snowtown, just deep enough that the dogs wouldn't dig him up. They marked the spot with an old car battery so they'd remember. Back at the pub the next weekend, they toasted one less rock spider in the world. No one asked questions. No one noticed Clinton was gone. Snowtown slept on, and the bank, the old Commonwealth Bank on the main street with its iron vault and dusty windows, waited empty, patient, like it already knew what it would become.
1994.
The group had rules now. John wrote them on a big sheet of cardboard and pinned it to the wall in his kitchen. Names in red marker, reasons next to them in black. Some names had photos clipped from newspapers. Some had phone numbers. Some just had the word done scrawled across in thick strokes. They called it the Wall of Shame. Robert added new names whenever he heard gossip at the abattoir. James brought ones from school friends who'd been hurt. Mark supplied addresses from old customer files at the panel shop. They met every Sunday night in John's lounge room. Beers, cigarettes, the wall. Then they chose. The second name they crossed off belonged to Ray Davies, 41, unemployed, lived alone in a housing trust flat in Salisbury North. John said Ray had touched a neighbor's kid years ago. No one had proved it, but John said he could tell. They took him on a Friday evening in October. Robert and James knocked on the door with a slab of beer and a story about a party. Ray let them in. He was lonely. He liked company. They drank for an hour. Then John arrived with Mark. Ray never saw the hammer. They kept him alive for 3 days. In the shed behind John's house, they tied him to a chair with fence wire. John played music loud so the neighbors wouldn't hear. A C/D/C, Back in Black on repeat. They made Ray read his own bank details into a cassette recorder. PIN numbers, card numbers, mother's maiden name. They played the tape back to him while they worked. When they were finished, they put what was left into a blue plastic 44-gallon drum from the scrapyard, poured in hydrochloric acid from the hardware store, sealed the lid. The drum went into the back of Mark's van, parked in his garage for now. They toasted again that Sunday. 2 down. The tapes became part of the ritual. Every victim had to record their details first. John said it was practical, easy money from Centrelink fraud. But everyone knew the real reason. He liked hearing them beg. The third was Suzanne Allen, 47, loud, drank too much, owed Ruby look-alike money. She came to John's house one night to collect. She left in pieces. The fourth was Thomas Trevelyan, transgender, quiet, lived with a disability pension. John hated weirdos. Thomas lasted 5 days. By 1995, the shed was too small. They needed more space. Mark knew about the old bank in Snowtown, Commonwealth Bank, closed since 1987. For lease cheap, big iron vault in the back. Perfect. They signed the papers in April. John paid the deposit in cash from Suzanne's bank account. They moved the drums in at night. 6 of them now, lined up in the vault like soldiers. The smell started almost immediately, sweet and chemical, leaking through the air vents. People on the main street complained about dead rats in the drains. The council sprayed. It didn't help. Inside the vault, they built a workbench, hooks on the walls, a sink for washing down, power tools on shelves. They called it the disassembly room. James turned 21 that winter. John threw him a party in the vault. Music, beer, a new drum waiting empty. James laughed too loud. He drank too much. He filmed everything on a little camcorder Mark had stolen. The tapes weren't just audio anymore. And the wall back in Salisbury kept growing. More names, more reasons, more plans. The town slept on, but the bank had started breathing. Slow, chemical, hungry.
1997.
The old Commonwealth Bank on Snowtown's main street had become a mouth. The front door stayed padlocked. The windows were painted black from the inside, but the vault door at the back stood open every night, exhaling a sour chemical breath that drifted down the street and curled around people's ankles. like smoke. Inside, the killers had made themselves at home. They dragged in an old kitchen table, a battered couch, a fridge that hummed constantly. A television sat on a milk crate playing VHS porn on loop. A whiteboard on the wall listed jobs still to do. Clean barrel 4, skin still floating. Get more acid? Bunnings Run, new tape for James's camera. Find Troy. Yude was next. 19, thin, heroin thin. Lived with his mom in a caravan. John said Troy had stolen tools from Mark's garage. Mark said Troy had looked at his wife the wrong way. James said Troy had called him a poof once at school. Any reason worked. They took him on a Thursday night in May. James brought him to the bank with a story about a party and free speed. Troy walked in smiling, pupils already pinned. He was still smiling when they locked the vault door behind him. They kept him alive for 9 days. Longest yet. They wanted to see how long a person could last once the fun really started. They recorded everything. John held the microphone close to Troy's mouth, while Robert used the pliers. James filmed. Mark kept score on the whiteboard. When Troy finally stopped breathing, they played the tape back at full volume, laughing until they cried. Then they got to work. They called it processing. Skin slid off in sheets once the acid had done its job. Bones were boiled clean in an old 200-liter drum on a gas burner. Hair and teeth went into a separate bucket. Everything else went into new barrels. 6 barrels became 8. 8 became 10. The smell was impossible to hide now. People walking past the bank at night crossed the street without knowing why. Dogs refused to go near the building. The pub started closing early. One old farmer told the publican the bank smelled like the killing floor at the abattoir, only worse. The publican laughed and bought him another beer. Nobody called the police. In October, they took Gary O'Dwyer, 29, intellectually disabled, trusted everyone. John said Gary had looked at kids funny at the playground once. That was enough. They kept Gary for 11 days. On the 10th day, he was still trying to be friends with them. On the 11th, he wasn't anything anymore. Barrel 11. Christmas. 1998 came and went. The killers had a barbecue in the bank's back room. Sausages, beer, Christmas carols on the radio. They gave each other presents wrapped in newspaper. John got a new set of pliers. Robert got a bone saw. James got a fresh cassette tape labeled Best of 98. They toasted the new year with acid-burned hands and smiles that never reached their eyes. And the vault kept filling. 12 barrels now, some still moving when the lid went on. The town slept on, but the bank had learned to speak. Late at night, when the generators were off and the street was empty, anyone brave enough to press an ear to the iron door could hear it, a low, wet gurgling, like something inside was still trying to scream and failing.
1999.
James Vlasakis was 20 now. He had lost the acne, but not the twitch in his left eye. He had a girlfriend now, a baby on the way, a flat in Salisbury North. He told himself he was getting out, but every Sunday, he still drove to Snowtown. John expected it. The vault had become a second home. 12 barrels lined the walls like silent sentries. Some still gurgled, some were quiet. John had started talking about cleaning up loose ends. Loose ends meant anyone who knew too much. James's name appeared on the whiteboard one night in March, in small letters at the bottom. Just JV, but it was there. He saw it when he went to write Acid Run on the list. His stomach dropped. John noticed. clapped him on the back. "Don't worry, mate. Your family. Family looks after family." But James had seen what happened to family. The next victim was Elizabeth Hayden, Mark's wife, 37, loud, drank with the men, knew every secret. John said she talked too much. They took her on a Saturday morning while Mark was at the panel shop. James helped carry her into the vault. She fought hard, called them every name under the sun, called Mark a gutless coward. They kept her for 4 days. On the 4th day, she was quiet. Barrel 13. Mark came home that night, found the house empty, shrugged, and went to the pub. James started sleeping with a knife under his pillow. In April, they took David Johnson, 24, James's half-brother. John said David had been asking questions about Elizabeth. James begged. John said it was time James proved his loyalty. They made James hold the microphone while they worked. David looked at him the whole time, not angry, just disappointed. When it was over, James vomited in the sink until there was nothing left. That night, he drove to the police station in Port Wakefield. He sat in the car park for 2 hours, engine running, knife on the seat beside him. Then he drove home, but the seed was planted. In May, they took Gavin Porter, 29, James's ex-flatmate, heroin addict, owed John money. James helped again, but this time he left the camcorder running when no one was looking. He hid the tape in his car. 1 week later, John added another name to the board. JV moved up the list. James made his choice. On May 20th, 1999, he walked into Elizabeth Police Station and asked to speak to a detective. He was shaking so hard they gave him a blanket. He told them everything: names, addresses, the bank, the barrels, the tapes. They didn't believe him at first. Then they raided the vault. The smell hit them 20 meters from the door. Inside, they found 6 barrels in the vault and 6 more at Mark's house. 8 bodies fully dissolved, parts of 3 more. 11 victims in total. The 12th barrel was never found. John was arrested at the abattoir, covered in sheep blood, smiling like it was a joke. Robert surrendered quietly. Mark claimed he knew nothing. James sat in a safe house and cried for 3 days straight. The boy who helped kill 11 people had finally said, "Stop," but the town would never be the same. And the bank just stood there, empty, quiet, waiting, because some places remember and some debts are never fully paid.
2003.
The trials lasted 4 years. John Bunting sat in the dock every day in a neat suit, hair combed, smiling at the cameras. He represented himself for a while, cross-examining with witnesses with the same calm voice he'd used to make them read their PIN numbers into a microphone. He called the victims waste. He called the police puppets. He called James a liar and a weakling. The jury didn't smile back. He got 11 life sentences, no parole. Robert Wagner got 10. Mark Hayden got 25 years for helping hide the bodies. James Vlasakis got 26 for 4 murders, but walked free in 2025 after serving his minimum. The town tried to disappear. Snowtown changed its welcome sign to the home of the giant wheat stack and hoped people would forget the other thing it was famous for. The bank was demolished in 2000. The vault door sold to a museum in Adelaide. The barrels were incinerated at high temperature. What was left of the victims was buried in unmarked graves so ghouls couldn't find them. The main street got new paint, new gardens, a tourist information board that mentioned nothing after 1950. But tourists still came. They parked outside the empty block where the bank used to be, took photos of nothing, left flowers for people they never knew. Locals crossed the street when they saw out-of-state plates. In 2011, a movie came out, Snowtown, shot in black and white, slow and brutal. The town hated it. The pub stopped showing the trailer on the TV. People moved away. Population dropped below 200. The giant wheat stack rusted. The pub closed on Mondays. And still the smell lingered in memory. Not acid, not anymore. Just the memory of acid. James changed his name after release, moved interstate, started a new family, keeps the curtains closed, doesn't answer the door to strangers. Mark Hayden got out in 2023, lives quietly somewhere in South Australia. No one knows where. Robert Wagner is still inside, writes letters to pen pals saying he was framed. John Bunting is 75 now, still in Supermax, still smiling in annual mugshots, still no parole. The 12th barrel was never found. Police searched every property the group ever rented, every dam, every scrapyard, nothing. Some say John took the secret to his grave, whenever that day comes. Some say it's still out there, waiting. In 2025, a new housing estate went up on the edge of Snowtown. Young families, kids on bikes, barbecues on weekends. One of the new residents found something odd while digging a veggie patch. A blue plastic lid, half buried, rusted chain around it. He called the council. The council called police. Police came quietly, no sirens. They dug carefully. The lid came off. Inside was nothing but dirt and an old cassette tape. The tape was blank, or maybe it wasn't. They never told anyone what they heard when they played it. Snowtown sleeps on, but some nights, when the wind is right, people say they hear it, a low gurgling from somewhere under the ground, like something still trying to speak and failing. The town won't speak of it, but the ground remembers, and some barrels just wait for the right spade to set them free again. That was the complete retelling, the bodies in the barrels. Thank you for staying until the end. This one was heavy. If it hit hard, please smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. A new true crime thriller drops every single week. Most important, comment below and tell me which real case I should retell next. I read every single comment, and the most requested story always goes straight to the top of the list. Until the next one. Some towns try to forget. Some secrets just wait underground. Take care of yourselves out there. See you in the next story.